Power, it's the same old story. Another brave performance. But again, it's another loss under 15 points as they waste some opportunities. And the Giants, they scrape, they claw, and they keep their season alive. A vital 4 points at the Adelaide Oval. The Giants by 12.
Alrighty, good evening and welcome to the CREEDCAST. It is Tuesday, the 4th of August. We are into August of the football season. That means, being a Tuesday, that it is your review show time. A review this week of the Round 21 clash at Adelaide Oval on Saturday evening. A very, very bitterly cold evening. My brother, who was there, was even starting to say that he wasn't enjoying holding his beer, which is something you rarely hear from his mouth. But that's just how cold it was. It was bitterly cold, and it was a bitterly disappointing result as well. Your Port Adelaide Footy Club in honourable loss territory once again, but frustratingly so. 9 goals 9, 63 to 10 goals 15 to GWS 75, a 12-point loss. I think the 8th loss by 15 points or less for your Port Adelaide Footy Club this year, which again, the ethical tank and all those things that we keep saying over the last couple of months is in play there. But as you know, we see all the future with all that, but purely as a fan, we still feel ourselves disappointed. And good evening to you, Jamie. You texted me on the night as we were finishing it, or as I was leaving the Oval. You were, of course, watching from home, and said you were a little bit dirty on the loss, which I think kind of speaks to kind of that frustration of just being so close yet so far all year.
Hello to you. Hello to everyone else. Thanks for joining us as always. Yeah, I find it hard to gather my thoughts, and I find it hard to know truly how to feel about that game in the weekend. I think, I was a little bit dirty about it, mostly because I feel that it was the last opportunity to grab a win in front of the home fans. It was a good opportunity to gain some nourishment, and sure, if we had have won, it probably would have put us into 14th spot on the ladder, which does have its ramifications after all. But it was just a mixture of frustrations. The game, it was a scrappy old affair. I thought we gutsed it out against a team who, admittedly so, have their injury troubles and whatnot. I think they just had a bit more polish on the day, and I was just disappointed, particularly with some of our leaders, some of our experienced players. Just, and I don't think they were going through the motions. I think the limit of our capabilities came to the fore, and largely, like I said off the top, just disappointed that the home fans didn't get to enjoy what I believe is probably a last opportunity to win, because we obviously have the Melbourne game, and you don't want to predict these things too early or count your chickens before they hatch. But it's going to be a hard ask, a tough one against Melbourne. So it'll be a good evening regardless, because we can tip our beverages down our necks and salute another year of football from a home viewing point of view for those of us who attend regularly and are in South Australia and whatnot. For those interstate, a game at Adelaide Oval is just another game. So, yeah. So as I've rambled on here for, a minute or two, I guess that just epitomizes how I am struggling to grasp my emotions. Obviously, it's kind of tempered since, because at the end of the day, we do have a Doug Cochran to get, and the ethical tank is still rolling on. But yeah, I was a little bit dirty on Saturday night, particularly with the amount of opportunities that were squandered in that last quarter.
Alrighty, so there's a little bit of a technical fumble there. I am, as anyone's watching on YouTube probably knows, and anyone that listened last week, I am recording remotely because I'm doing the family thing and helping out the family who are away and house sitting and dog sitting and cat sitting. But unfortunately, as I was just ranting to Jamie off air, my parents' internet is quite terrible and they're kind of people that don't do a good job of keeping up their tech very well. So I'm now recording off my phone hotspot, which is better than their internet, which is not the way it's meant to work. But anyway, the last point I was in the middle of making before whenever it cut off was just about the young guys in amongst this kind of scrappy game. It was one of those games where a few of the young ones, whether it be your Balin O'Briens, your Christian Murrays, Harrison Rams, limited opportunities that they got. There were some nice moments, but there was a few mistakes in there. They kind of didn't get a wealth of opportunity to allow themselves to get a bit of run into the game. And that kind of made the whole effort of ours disjointed because there's not enough senior leadership on the field to kind of make up that gap. So you're putting a lot of responsibility on a few guys, and those few guys, like your Jason HORNE-FRANCIS or your Ollie Wines or wherever else, they're having to do a lot of hard work, inside work as well. So their disposal efficiency and whatnot isn't going to be great in a scrappy game either. So then it's just like you're not really getting your class movers doing what they're doing. And there was a few guys that did move the ball reasonably well, but it was a disjointed effort, wasn't it? It was just, and that's kind of what a side like this, the makeup of, is going to be, particularly for a side like ours that is last in the league in transition from forward back to forward, and against a team that's very good in that respect. And even though GWS have their injuries, they're still a more experienced side on the field regardless. And in the key position, the key pillar spots, whether it be their guys moving it from the back. And I think that's the most important thing, is they still had a lot of their key movers that can move it from the back well. And then they got good performances out of some of the guys ahead of them. And then that kind of just was the difference, even though X-Score only had it as a 5-point loss. So, opportunities were pretty similar for both teams. We still underscored by more. And unfortunately, in that last quarter in particular, where we did have a wealth of opportunity, as GWS kind of battened the hatches and decided to try to just weather the storm, I think they did it there was a calculated risk involved in that, is that we think we can hold them off because they're not very good at getting it past 50 for golden opportunities on goal. And they probably would have just turned the switch if they had to again, but they didn't have to because they never got closer than 12 points.
Yeah, and maybe the disappointment in my text message to you was also the fact that with 3 minutes to go, Mitch Georgiades has a very gettable shot on goal, which could have made it very, very interesting, and we would have had plenty of time to push for the win. But unfortunately, in a bit of Mitch Georgiades fashion, he missed it. I will, though, give him credit for the fact that he did outscore his behinds with goals this week, kicking the 3 goals too. So still a great effort from George against Sam Taylor, who is one of the best defenders in the competition, in my opinion, when he's up and running. And that was a great matchup all night, but George still comes away with the 5 shots on goal. But yeah, there's those little touch points throughout a game of football. And yeah, it was a scrappy affair on both sides. Both sides, will be gritting their teeth through the review, I would imagine. It's just, I like that point that you made. And I think we did touch on it in the preview that GWS's back line was its best line, and it still had some key cogs, some experienced players and prime movers, like you just said, so which made a difference. And yeah, yet again, we're talking about a close loss, this to the tune of 12 points. And unfortunately, yet again, it's a run of 6 goals that probably makes the difference in the end. What was that at the end of the second quarter and the start of the third quarter? Because from halfway through the third quarter, I think it was, we kept them goalless, funnily enough. And
I think my note was so 8 minutes, 30 seconds to go in the third quarter. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah.
I actually noted down that point. Yeah, because I was just like, that's nuts.
It is nuts. And, they had their missed opportunities in the last quarter, which helps that connotation of being held goalless. But, so we're splitting hairs a little bit. We want that nourishment a little bit. But yet again, we can't question the effort of such a young team. I think there was 9 players under the age of the low 20s. So someone posted it online. You know, you mentioned GWS still being slightly more experienced through age and games played, although their own injury crisis that they're facing. But yeah, I think I mentioned last week in the review of Brisbane that the weight of the season is starting to creep in to our team more broadly. And this was a game that didn't change that opinion for me. Apparently, from what we've heard, they put a real focus on team defence after the previous 2 weeks of conceding 100 points. And I think it was Joe Richards on SNSA today, 4th of August, who mentioned that they had a goal of keeping GWS to under 80 points. And we did achieve that goal. It's just, I think we've shown that when we do, apart from those really stellar games against Geelong, Showdown 60, where we do, even the Sydney loss to an extent, when we do put a high focus on team defence, we do tend to struggle with our offensive game. Again, putting those kind of outliers aside, and this game was an epitome of that. They had a high focus on team defence, and probably rightly so, coming off the back of Brisbane and Fremantle. But we just couldn't find any fluency going forward, and resorted to some dump kicks and some poor options, not kicking to the advantage of some of our forwards, some shallow entries, and just a bit of unfortunate luck, misfortune, if you will, a Durden shot that doesn't bounce the right way, and just other bits and pieces like that. Because I felt that Brian Large, we finished 9-9 goals and behinds, but I don't think there was any really bad misses. There was a few that you go, oh, you should have kicked that, like JHF. Jordan Sweet had a shot on goal that would have really made that third quarter a bit more interesting. Oh no, that was in the second quarter. I think that would have, really added to our run that we were going on.
It would have put us up by 3 goals. It would have been a handy break at that point. The Sweet goal.
But apart from that, like set shots, we didn't do too badly on. Some general play goals there. It's just we didn't kick enough points. Which end scene, roll the credits. Thanks for coming, everyone. We just didn't kick enough points.
Yeah. We were talking off air, weren't we, and a little bit of behind the curtain about how the reviews, it is like a Michael Bay production meeting with Port Adelaide games every week. It's just like, all right,
what I've done.
Yeah, there is a formula to it. It is we start the game, there's some explosions, and then we finish, and that's basically it at the moment for Port Adelaide. It's we start the game, we apply ourselves well, we put some pressure on at times, but eventually the other team's gonna have their bad boys 2 highway shootout, kick 6 goals in a row, and Bob's your uncle. There's the result, more or less.
Bad Boys was a Michael Bay movie, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, Bad Boys 2 was where Michael Bay started doing a lot of cocaine and made a movie that I still love to this day. One that got a lot of play at about 2 a.m. in college a lot was Bad Boys 2, and just me and Shay just doing the devil is not welcome here line to each other. Anyway, Bad Boys 2 fans, Bad Boy 2 Hive, mount up. But it is August in the review season, ladies and gentlemen. But we've talked a little bit about goals and stuff, so we can go straight into the lines, so we might leave some of the random points about the weekend, particularly with Dougie Cochran and whatnot, too, between now and the segments. But so, yeah, we've talked about the forward line a bit, so let's talk about one thing I want to kind of highlight from the last couple of weeks. Outside, it's been a pretty average couple of weeks, but someone who has started kicking for goal very well with limited opportunities they're getting, Todd Marshall kicking 2.
Yes.
JHF popping up with his goal, and then Georgiades. It's like we're getting the guys, Georgiades getting the 3 out of a very tough matchup with Sam Taylor, and yes, he gets a couple dead in front, but forwards are meant to. That's what we actually want Georgiades doing a bit more, is finding opportunities dead in front of goal, whether it be from a good Durden turnover or a 50-metre penalty. Again, that's what we want forwards to do, is win those opportunities. and Todd Marshall popping up with a couple. We do get the performance we kind of want in a tight matchup out of a few of our forwards. It's just we don't get enough outside of that, and that's kind of where it comes from. But that is a positive still out of this game, that the forwards in a tight, low-scoring game did stand up well enough, just not to the tune of a win.
That's right, and some of that can come down to the supply and the opportunities that are presented to them. I'm glad you brought up Todd, though, first of all. So it's a couple of weeks where he's kicked 2 goals, and he's kicked yet again. He's kicked them from distance, which is a refreshing change to what we've become used to. It just shows that the ball's rolling a bit more for Todd Marshall now. I know that Darren Reeves, I think it was in his press conference, paid credit to Todd for his defensive work as well, and some of the off-ball stuff, and also credited the fact that he presented, talking about opportunities and supply, mentioned that Todd actually made good leads or found himself in space and was not used by the people entering inside 50. So 6 possessions. I think he had 7 possessions last week, but it was a bit similar to the Corey Durden chat early in the season when there was still some doubt around Corey Durden and that acquisition. You're a forward, kick goals. I don't like, some have different roles where they come up the ground and they get their hands on the pill a bit more, but from my point of view, and it's the opposite, it's in a similar vein to my views on defenders. As a defender, whether you're a running halfback, whether you're locked down, your job is to defend first. Do that and then spread your wings, so to speak. As a forward, kick goals. We need goals. I don't care if Todd had his hands on it twice. As long as those 2 possessions are goals, because he kicked 2 goals, I'd love him to get 6 possessions and kick 6 goals. But you see where I'm coming from. It's just perhaps also a window into the fact that the defense thing was maybe not a pipe dream, but a bit far-fetched. And while we saw the merits, he had his good games. The question now is, could we have got more out of our team as a whole if Todd started forward at the start of the year and perhaps Lukosha started on a wing, which, again, wasn't really in the realms of discussion broadly. There's a few Port Adelaide supporters here and there in social media. Obviously, they wanted Lukosha to go back, and I know there has been a bit of the wing chat briefly going back a ways, but those discussions weren't really being had until kind of halfway through the season when it was broached by, I think, Josh Carr and whatnot. So, yeah, happy for Todd that he's getting a roll on. Obviously, we've got nothing really to play for, but Todd's on a long-term contract, which has been discussed at length. So this is more or less his preseason as well, much like it is a 19-year-old Xavier Bama or a Mitch Zaddo who's trying to get his contract extended for next year. You know, it's just as much of a hopefully a kickstart into season 2027 for Todd. I've believed from the start of the year that he should have been a forward, and we had that discussion in our preseason shows about robbing Peter to pay Paul. And so now, with the fact that we've seen that glimpse of Lukosha on a wing and the supply that he can provide, I hope that we go into season 2027 with Todd, Marshall, Whitlock, and... Sorry. Todd and Marshall are not 2 different players. Todd Marshall, Jack Whitlock, and Mitch Georgiadis as our 3 key posts. And hopefully, because I would hope, because that's all we've got now, Port supporters, is that we spend a preseason training offense. And I hope that Todd is there to bear the fruits of that labour in conjunction with Jack Whitlock after another preseason and after Mitch Georgiadis hard resets, turns himself off and then back on again to rid himself of the yips. And we've got a much more functional forward line next year. But we're talking about GWS. Todd kicked 2 goals. I'm happy for him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Him kicking the 2, George kicking the 3, and HORNE-FRANCIS popping up with some scores as well. It's like that's good. It's just you don't get that, that satiation from the smalls around him. Like Durden doesn't kick one in this one for only the second time this year, so that kind of speaks to the amount of struggle they were having at ground level. And I do a couple more plus points. There's no goals out of him, but Bammett has 13 disposals. Zato has 7. They each have 12 pressure acts in there. Yes, yeah. They do kick goals. But they also have the disposals.
Yes.
And they have the pressure acts. And Zato is, doing the hard nut running 3 people things. I think both of them have done plenty you want to continue with them for next year. I have zero doubt about that. Bammett had already impressed us for, since basically coming in more or less straight after his drafting. I think it was a week and then he came in. But Zato has been a real revelation, obviously coming in for the showdown, kicking his first goal there, immediately endearing himself to us the way he goes about it. There's something about something about both his speed, his quickness of decision making, and he's quite fit for an SSP signing this year. Quite quite well built as a young footballer. That is making him immediately quite handy. And like teasing forward already, I can tell you that he's going to be in the Wilson Gray Award. I can tell you that. So like he's doing a lot of things right. Competitive, got a bit of cheek about him. And some of the little bits of content the club's already putting out there. So I like the cut of his jib. He's just doing a lot of things to endear himself, and this was one of those games that, 7 disposals, a goal, but just the stuff around that, how he positions himself. He's making players accountable around him, making the opposition accountable for. You've got to be aware of his presence, and he's been a plus point coming into the side. He's kicking his goals when he's getting an opportunity, and between him and Bammett, I was actually quite impressed. Again, it's just like we're kind of giving a lot of plaudits to a forward line that kind of kicked 9 goals 9, but I think a lot of that will probably come down to when we transition to the middle part of the ground is kind of where that lack of opportunity came. Was some of the delivery at times was again your point about wanting to get a stat that is more official and available to us as the Nuffies doing podcasts about opportunities within 30 versus within 50, because inside 50, I think the shallow nature of some of the opportunities that we get is a part of the problem, and delivery and all those things. So, I really enjoyed Mitch Zato on the night. I was cock a hoop about him on the hill. Talking about him a lot with my brother. I think my brother said he even drafted him into his dream team at one point in the last couple of weeks. So he's been excited about him as well. He said he didn't get him much points. So I was like, well, yeah, but he's not. He might not be a dream team player, but he's fucking good.
Yeah, not yet. Anyway,
yeah.
I totally echo your thoughts. And do we have the new Port Adelaide Bash brothers? I know when Bammett was picked up in the mid-season, we were like, oh, Bam Bammett, it has a ring to it, but we need another Bash brother. Sam Powell-Pepper used to be the Bash brother, but he's getting on. So, maybe we got the new Bash brothers, and then we got Uncle Bash coming back into the team next year. And what a forward line that's going to be, with a bit of cheek, you mentioned, a bit of ruggedness. I echo your thoughts. And that ruggedness and that grit is one thing, but the hard running for me, obviously there's the highlight for Zato the Shadow, Zato in the shadows, I've heard, if you will. But also, I think it was a point in the last quarter, or I made a point in the last quarter to try and span my gaze outside of where the ball was on telecast. And it's not always easy, because fucking the telecast of the filming of football matches has gone down the toilet over the last 20 years. But when they did have those wide angle, zoomed out shots, often you would see Bammett if not at the halfback flank, in the back pocket, setting up space to then run forward. And these are the unsung things that forward pocket and half forward flankers. That's just the unsung tasks that they're tasked with, for want of a better term. And it just goes to show that with simple information, they can stick to tasks because they're clearly running patterns that they've been told to do. That's not always going to get rewarded. But on a couple of occasions, Bammett did get that link-up play, and that's just due to his running patterns and the effort to stick to task, run all the way back in an effort to perhaps link up, but then when the ball is moving forward, to gut run all the way back to your natural position or selected position at a half forward or a forward pocket. So they've got, I think, while it is fresh and it's raw, they've got the effort and the commitment to do those things that don't always net you a highlight or a stat or anything like that. And then, thankfully they both did get rewarded with a goal on the night, because I think they both deserved it with all of these points being considered.
Mm-hmm. I think the last thing I wanted to say, to add on to what you're saying about the things they've got, is it's like, and you kind of alluded to it, but it's just actual footy intelligence. They seem to already have a read of an understanding of how an AFL team spreads, where they need to go depending on where the ball is, and what your structure is at any given time. They seem to have slotted into kind of the team structure reasonably well, as chaotic as it might seem at the moment with the ins and outs being so prevalent. They've slotted in reasonably well to that kind of structure and that deep, like off-ball kind of stuff as well. So as you said about the spacing, so and that's really important stuff, and that's kind of where our season has been. The reasons for any hope or reasons to watch Port Adelaide football has been about the structure this year and what we're doing. So unfortunately, what we're doing with the ball when we've got it is part of the issue. We actually possessed the ball for more time in this game, and GWS did. I think some of that number is franked by a fair bit of dominance of possession in the last quarter. So GWS did have a fair bit of it for probably a fair bit of time prior to that, but it was, I think, 43-40 possession time to Port Adelaide, with, of course, 17% in dispute. But the midfield. I mean, Jason Horne-Francis is fantastic once again, and showing, he's gone up into the top 5 of coaches' votes, which is really, it's going to be, I think the argument for what the end of season awards at Port Adelaide is going to get far, far more interesting. Maybe that's why Zach Butters is trying to get back for a game, one more game, to try to clinch the best of fairest. It's getting really interesting with Jason Horne-Francis leading really well. But I mean, starting at right in the middle. I mean, we start the game 5-0 from clearance and start really well. But I think by the end of the first quarter, GWS had almost tied that up. So I think it got to 8-8. So it basically means they went 8-3 from a midpoint of a third of the way through, or middle of the first quarter. And then from then, I think it's a fairly even battle. It ends 9-9 from centre clearance. I think we win by a couple at stoppage. So we shade clearance. But I think when we said in the preview, we're going to need to win that areas and tip the field our way, because we're not going to be able to transition the ball. So the fact it goes even at centre immediately means GWS actually have an advantage, with the fact that they're going to be like, well, if we can defend their clearance, then we're going to have the ability to move forward. Whereas if GWS get the clearance, we're going to be, shit out of luck, probably, get hemmed in our back end and struggle to get it out and turn the ball over or something like that. So, but around just the centre clearance and stop it, like, you could see, like, I like Bergman in there, I like Jace Bergman in there, I like Jason Horne-Francis. There was a couple of times where they almost ran into each other, and it just felt like that there's the makeshift part of our midfield, and that's part of the problem. Is then if you're running into each other, you're not getting clear. There's none of that 1-2 punch, that smooth Jason Horne-Francis winning the ball and getting it out to Zach Butters, who's peeling out the back, or vice versa. That little period we had with those two linking up was beautiful to watch, and we just don't get any of that. It means you get more rush disposal out of clearance if you get it. You're just not getting clean usage out of the stoppage, and that means then what we were just talking about with their forward line, we don't get the wealth of opportunity in the forward line comparative to another team that moves the ball better out of there with their better movers. They're able to handball out of stoppage better, get it outside, and just get better use of the ball at the crucial times. There wasn't much difference in stats, but when one team needed to do it better, it was GWS out of those areas, and that's again just the makeshift nature of where we are right now in the middle.
It is makeshift, and it had me thinking a little bit of doomsaying a little bit, but we got a window the weekend and last week's game. Perhaps it's a window into a hypothetical world without Zach Butters, and the discussion of, well, Rosie hasn't been in the side this year, but he'll come into the side next year. But there's also a chance that Connor Rosie gets injured for a large portion of next year. I desperately hope it doesn't happen, but you have to be prepared for if something like that does happen. And journalist Matt Turner wrote an article, and I didn't read it in full, but essentially just looking over where we're at in our midfield right now with the pieces that we've got. And he mentioned that it is a very workmanlike, effort-based midfield, but the class is what's lacking. And that definitely has showed over the last 2 weeks. The likes of Drew, who funnily enough was our highest rated player on the field from a champion data point of view. Ollie Wines, Bergman you mentioned, and running into each other. I as you know, I watched the replay of the game before we jumped on, and yeah, there was a stoppage in particular where I think we had claims at a centre clearance, but JHF and Bergman ran into each other, and I think it spilled out and GWS collected and it went the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And you also do have to play devil's advocate and say these mixers have not spent a lot of time with one another, like when you're looking at the midfield as a whole. Sure, Ollie Wines and Willem Drew, to an extent, JHF have played a bit together from a CBA point of view, but when you add Jace Burgoyne, who I do think is making gains in his midfield craft, when you add Bergman in, who statistically had a good game, there's just that level of dysfunctionality to it. And hypothetically, we may lose Zach Butters. And hypothetically, we may get Tom Sparrow. Is this going to be enough if Connor Rosie does have to spend some time? And again, I'm not hoping for it. I desperately hope it doesn't happen. But it just goes to show maybe what the detractors of Port Adelaide are seeing, where it's like, if you cut off that class, how are you going to win a game? Because it is won and lost predominantly in the midfield. If your workmanlike footballers can't go with a JHF and lift to that extent, he's certainly lifted in his personal or individual status, leadership status. His class obviously keeps burgeoning as the years go on. But who's going to go with him is the question. Bergman has the capabilities, but what I saw from Bergman was a lot of getting the ball, but a lot of booting the ball. And though the entries inside of 50 left a lot to be desired, it was a very Hinkley-esque entry inside 50, where I think Josh Carr and this coaching group demand a little bit more than that. And that's summing up your options, having a cool head about you, and kicking it to the advantage of your forwards. And that's not to just put it on him, but, you know, and he's had an undulated season as well. You can play devil's advocate for a lot of these things, but this is the kind of lens that I think we need to critically analyze arguably the most important part of the field, because there is a chance we lose Zach Butters. It's a high possibility. And we need to replace that class because, as we know, him, JHF, are some of the best kickers inside 50 in the competition. And we may be losing one of those people. So how do we whether we moneyball it or acquire it, develop it, where's that class going to come from is the question. Because without a doubt, especially under this coaching regime, effort and intent is there. Like our contested possession numbers are there, which haven't been in recent years. We beat GWS for contested possession. Mm-hmm. Our stoppage game was good, like you spoke about. But we need to kick more points. We don't have a big, bustling key focal point. We need to give our forwards good supply. And that comes down to the midfield and, to an extent, your rebounding halfbackers.
Yeah. It is. It is just class of ball use, and that's why our handball game has been poor at times this year, and just our ability to assess the situation outside of, like I said, there were some weeks there where Zach Butters and Jason Horne-Francis were working together well, and if they'd had a run together for the rest of the year, and Zach Butters hadn't gotten injured, who knows what I think we're winning a couple more games the way they've been playing and the way that we've stuck within some of these games. You have to think there's another win or two in there, as detrimental as that might be for the end of the season, because I don't think we win enough to get to a wild card spot. So then we're in that no man's land. So that's that more outside of the individual. But you're just looking at it from purely a performance point of view. There's a lot that they're doing right and winning the ball, because we were getting smashed in some stoppages last year and just looked like completely. So we have revamped a lot of how that works. It's just the class of use, and that comes down to sometimes the individuals, just who is a classy user. Like Zach Butters, that stuff, he's obviously improved year on year and become one of the best players in the comp, but that was in him. And you can teach, there's a certain amount you can teach, but there's a certain amount that just comes down to how quickly a player's mind assesses the situation. That's what makes Zach Butters so special. It's what is making Jason Horne-Francis increasingly special, is they just see the play kind of before it's that character in X-Men that's moving around, the Speedy Boy, just
like Quicksilver
podcast. Is that the one? It's Evan Peters. Yeah. It's is that what his name is? Just yeah.
He runs really fast.
Yeah, and puts things around. I'm actually picturing the Family Guy scene where Meg does it. It's like, but she does it and drops like a microwave in Lois's head and makes someone else like kick someone in the nuts, and then everything starts moving in normal motion again. I think Lois goes, "God damn it, which one of you is an X-Men?" Like something like that. Anyway. But the players that just see the play develop before it's developing, so to speak, and that's something you can't teach, but you've just got to recruit well. And luckily, we've got one in Jason Horne-Francis. But with Zach Butters going, and Connor Rosie's one of those players as well. So there is options going forward. But your point is right: is we're losing one likely, and one is coming back from a very long-term injury that is kind of weird as well. So there is that possible downturn for a little bit next year if things don't go well.
I do think Jace Burgoyne has the capabilities. If you asked me at the start of the year, I would not have a coherent answer for you. But he has shown a lot. I think because we've noted since he spent more time in there, it's clearances, it's contested possessions, it's ground balls, it's all the things you like. His focus needs to be on evening out the difference between his poor disposal efficiency and his best disposal efficiency. If he can bring that closer together, he had a better night on Saturday night against the Giants. If he can iron that out and get a consistent standard of good disposal, then I think he can offer a bit of polish. He'll need to keep entering the gym so that he can hold up in a midfield for a whole season, if required. But to answer my own kind of thought bubble, I do think that and again, for 2028, we might be getting Naz. So it may just come down to playing the waiting game, because we're not, while this is an early prediction, I'll be wanting to push higher next year, even though that could bite us in the ass with two father-son NGA products coming through. But I think I will want that natural progression of wins next year. But we're not in a premiership window next year, are we? 2028, 2029 is probably where I'm looking to go hard in finals if the NAS acquisition does come to fruition. And then that's another player who adds class. But we have to deal with the facts and we have to deal with the here and now. And dealing with the facts is a bit rich when Zach Butters is still on our books. And we're kind of hypothesizing without him. But yeah, it's a thought bubble to go forward with, and I guess we hope that Connor Rosie's nerve damage is temporary, much like Zach Butters was when he had his little weird nerve issue going back away.
Yeah, it's interesting thinking about that because he's been more or less mostly fit up until this one again. But yeah, the way he bounces back from some things is pretty impressive. I think one more quick note on the midfield. It is to, I guess, positive sandwich the back end of it. It is impressive to see HORNE-FRANCIS be able to deal with being the focal point, and not that I think there's any hard tags or anything like that, but he just is dealing with the fact that he is going to get the most attention any given week at this point in time. With how damaging he is, and he's the only one that's a game-winning kind of damaging midfielder in there at the moment. No disrespect to your Ollie Wines and co, but that's just not the roles they're playing. Jason HORNE-FRANCIS is the game-winning midfielder that we have, and he's the last 2 weeks he's dealt with that really, really well.
I totally agree. Sorry, I probably cut you off on a broader thought process because I totally agree. And I don't want to move on from Jason HORNE-FRANCIS. I was just going to bring up another player before we moved on to the defence. But just on JHF, I think Bedford did try to go to him at stages. But you mentioned a hard tag, whether it was a hard tag. Yeah, JHF ends up with 29 disposals. His efficiency was lacking a little bit, but he still had the impact with those effective disposals that we all speak about, and he still got the 7 coaches' votes. So I think everyone can agree that he had an impact on the game, and it is good. And I thought about it while I was watching the replay. Like, even still, I'm sure his detractors are waiting for an outburst that we have seen in the past from Jason HORNE-FRANCIS. Excuse me, but all the pressure that more so in the recent few weeks that he's been under by having to carry this side from a midfield point of view, he seems to be taking it in his stride really, really well. Whereas in the past he may have succumbed. And this is a game with Clayton Oliver on the other side, and I was very interested to see if just that toing and froing, if they were matched up a lot, which I don't actually think they were across the whole 4 quarters, if that would bring like a bit of a powder keg of emotions. But yeah.
Jason HORNE-FRANCIS just running past and saying, "Annie, are you okay? Are you okay, Annie?"
Yeah, that's good areas from Clayton.
Would have been good.
Yeah, good, very good from Clary. But yeah, no, credit to Jeff, our beloved Jeff. He's taking steps forward. He's taking steps up. 5th on the coaches' votes, like you mentioned before. Taking this all in his stride. Just really putting in his work to show that he is capable of being a future leader and a future captain of the football club. The player that I did want to get to, though, before we move on to defence, a little guy by the name of Joe Berry, who got a lot more wing time and got a bit more of a taste of midfield action. And while he had his moments where, again, he wanted to take the game on and just probably didn't choose his time correctly or choose his option correctly, he ends the game with 24 disposals, and he still went at 62.5% with just under 300 metres gained. Not a terrible game. 10 ground ball gets from Joe, which, just at a quick glance, is the leading ground ball get winner for Port Adelaide on the day. So, maybe playing in a position where you are around the ball a bit more often makes a statistical sheet look better, and perhaps, different roles net different results from a statistical point of view. But just nice to see him around the ball and just see him spread his wings a little bit, get involved in the play a little bit more, and just take steps forward. That's all we really ask for from our young, broadly inexperienced players, is keep taking steps forward. You may take a step or two back along the way, but keep pushing on. And I was impressed with his prevalence throughout the game, and more exposure in that regard can only be a benefit to him. But particularly with that broad discussion that we were having before, perhaps that can also contribute to the class moving forward as he grows into an AFL bona fide player with experience under his belt.
Yeah, you can only grow better, particularly at that age. You need to get touches of the football, particularly if you're going to be a player like Joe Berry, who we want to be a player that is going to, gather a fair bit of ball across his career. So getting him into a spot that he can do that, and we have the luxury of opportunity of experimenting with a few of these. They're calculated experiments, because you're experimenting with the hope and expectation that they're actually going to go okay. And Joe Berry certainly did. I'm glad you brought that up. He might come up later as well, but I had neglected to mention him in the midfield, and that is a very, very salient point to bring up, because he was a key contributor to some of the better things we're doing on the day. Snaps to him. Moving to the defence, I want to say, Aliir was special again. I'd be interested to wonder. I think he's dropped himself out of All-Australian contention, it seems, with a lot of rolling All-Australian teams and whatnot. I don't think it's been anything of a detriment to I don't think he's gotten any worse. I just think he's getting a little bit more help around the defence at times. Josh Ly's been great over the last couple of months since he's come back from concussion. But the one I really want to, wasn't a perfect game, but Lachie Jones, I think, battled away really, really well on the day. Both got a fair bit of ball and was using it reasonably well at times. Had a couple of turnovers here and there. It's like the Lachie Jones experience is the Lachie Jones experience, but it is an experience that is growing in enjoyment, I think, this year. Again, it's about getting games in a row. I think he had some unlucky moments. The one where the key moment that I look at that ultimately is kind of a Shakespearean tragedy, because the fish oil salesman Stringer does finish with a goal out of the opportunity. I don't know if you've thought that story, but it's a weird, that story is very weird. Lachie Jones, Jake Stringer's, in open space. It's a turn, I think it was a turnover or just a quick ball back inside 50, where our defense is pushed up a little bit. We're out of position. Lachie Jones closes the space and actually stops Stringer taking what looked like just a easy mark in front of goal, and he'd probably finish off the goal. He spoils the opportunity, but because he's had to fly back into the opportunity. He's kind of gone to ground as he's tried to battle at it. Obviously, Stringer's got no one else around him, so he just picks up the ball and snaps it through. So ultimately, like I said, Shakespearean in the fact that it does finish off in a goal, and it's, you look at it and go, well, Lachie Jones didn't win the battle, but the fact he got there and made it a battle at all, I think, is kind of what I've always liked about what Lachie Jones can bring. He's got sneaky, great closing speed. He can play bigger than his opponent at times, which he was doing again on the night. And I think he's been a positive. This is a bit of a makeshift defence with the guys that have been in and out, but Lachie Jones was one that I really wanted to kind of give a spotlight to, so to speak, because I think I wanted to give him some love for battling away against some pretty, there's some pretty talented forwards in that forward line still for GWS despite their injuries.
Yeah, glad you brought up Lachie. I'm always here for a bit of Lachie praise, and we on this medium have had our discussions over the few years that we've been doing this, in that we can see what Lachie Jones is about. We can see what he would have to offer. He just needs the continuity in his body. And thankfully this year, he's had the continuity. And I listened to Dean Brogan on 5AA on my way home today, and he made a point of talking about, like, it's been a tough year. The loss against the Giants was a lot of what we've said. It's a lot of what we've seen already in our losses. Effort, but not good enough type of thing. But the team, from some key aspects that they can bounce off of for 2027 have improved. But also certain individuals have objectively improved. And he mentioned Lachie Jones he's a good footballer and he's a good contributor to our team. He still has his moments, like you mentioned, but broadly, he's a good footballer. He's an honest footballer, and he's a key cog in our defensive makeup. He gets his 20 disposals. He kicks it at 80% disposal efficiency, even considering that he kicked one straight out on the full from a kick-in as well. Lachie Jones experience, 371 metres gain. I think he's rarely beaten in a one-on-one. Like you mentioned, like that's unfortunate. Yeah, he's done all the hard work to spoil that Stringer mark, but unfortunately he loses his feet, which I'm sure there'll be people critiquing that. Stringer keeps his feet and kicks the goal. Unfortunately as well, I don't know what happened in the first quarter, but obviously Harrison Ram was the natural matchup for Aaron Cadman, but for some reason Lachie Jones found himself matched up a couple of times. He won one contest. He unfortunately lost the other where Cadman goaled. The first quarter where I thought we squandered a lot of opportunities to put a bit more hurt on the scoreboard, mind you.
We started the first quarter really well. We started really well. I haven't brought that up.
Unfortunately, our defenders were forced to defend, and Lachie was one of them. Because then it was after that Cadman goal that Ram went to Cadman, and I think he held up quite formidably for the rest of the game, Harrison Ram, on that matchup. So I'm not sure what happened, whether they didn't trust him initially and wanted Jones to play taller. But for me, Jones Stringer, Ram, Cadman, those are natural matchups to me. And then from that Cadman goal onwards, that's what it seemed to be. So yeah, Jones had a solid game for mine. And, you know, I don't come out of games with any real qualms. Like, I'm in for the Lachie Jones experience, knowing that, you know, 80 out of 100 times or you know, 85 out of 100 times, he's going to do a good thing.
60% of the time, it works every time.
That's exactly
Lachie
right.
Jones experience, yeah.
Sex Panther, fitting.
Yeah.
Mustachioed, mulleted man. Sex Panther.
This is as bad as the time the raccoon got stuck in the copier. That's how I felt after that game finished. Lachie Jones, great. And yeah, it's a good point to bring up about Harrison Ram. He doesn't get a lot of the ball, and that's going to be the next development of a young player like him. But bringing him into a game like this is all about getting him the experience on. And a similarly sized, younger player, I don't have much bad to say. There's a lot of development to go with Harrison Ram. He's still really raw, but he came into the game and, you know, by and large, you know, Jake Stringer gets off the hook for 3 goals after kicking 2 goals, 10 across the last couple of weeks. But Jake Stringer is a 40. I think he's kicked 40 odd this year, so he's having a reasonable year, I think, unless I'm thinking of some different numbers. But you know, Cadman doesn't get off the chain. Canelio kicks 3, like that random. Whitfield kicks his first goal in 3 fucking years, like things like that going on. They kick a couple of pretty good goals, like goal of the year kind of contenders. Our issue in the defense is the transition out of it. So there's 2 separate areas of it, but by and large, the defending of when we can set up and defend and do what defenders and key defenders are meant to do, I was reasonably happy with. It's just when we need to move the ball out of our defense is when we're really struggling. And obviously, we've lost players across the year. You know, Kane Farrell hasn't really played much fit football for what feels like half a season now. And Logan Evans goes out, and a few of the other guys, and we've just been moving guys in and out. Like Bergman might be back there, but then he's coming into. I think if we had a few more fit, we'd want Bergman back there, but he's not. And so yeah, there's like 2 separate areas of defense. I'm happy with the key defending. It's the transition out, because the reason we start giving up these goals and sometimes have Lachie Jones or Alir or Harrison Ram end up out of position is because we hat kick it out of defence, and it comes straight back in when they're trying to push up. When they're just trying to move out of defence, it just keeps coming back in, and they're back on their heels again. So that's really the issue with the defence, and this game really kind of was one of those for me.
Yeah, the hat kicking is one thing for me, and for mine that happened kind of all over the ground on this particular game, and to an extent not to an extent, it did happen against Brisbane as well. But you mentioned earlier about the disposal breakdown, how Port Adelaide actually possessed the ball, the possession breakdown as a percentage. I think in this game, and I can't remember if it was Darren Reeves or someone else mentioned that was also part of the review, was the fact that we were perhaps holding onto the ball a bit more than we needed to and for longer periods, and that would obviously contribute to time in possession percentages, while GWS have more of the ball by way of disposal. Yeah, I think we found ourselves holding onto the ball and maybe not pulling the trigger at certain stages when we really needed to. It was funny at the start of the fourth quarter with the commentary team and going, all right, Port, they'll need to make a fast start if they're going to, overcome this. And then I think we gained possession and then just kind of kicked it around, and they're like, oh, maybe not, or something to that effect, or just want to hold it for a little bit or something like that. And unfortunately, yeah, I think that was a bit of a byproduct of perhaps that defending with the ball to set up our defense for if and when it got turned over, but also a bit of timidity across the lines to not pull that trigger, whether it be from youth, inexperience, or some players just going into self-preservation mode a little bit. Yeah, I felt that we could have moved the ball on with a bit more tenacity at times. Not all the time, of course, but that was a key characteristic on your topic of the defending for defenders. Pretty happy with that. But on the flip side, offense is sometimes generated from the defense, and yeah, we seriously lacked in a lot of that on the weekend.
Yeah, it was, and that possession number, because I think we've had two games where it has been, the possession number's been the other way, and it's just, we're trying to find that balance, and it's just, that's part of the journey in a young team like this, is finding balance and the learnings that come from it. I think you mentioned Darren Reeves at his press conferences. I always find Reeves a really good one to listen to, and he said like a lot of their focus was trying to make sure their team defense was good, and they were like pretty happy with that. It's just when it's more with the ball is I think you kind of alluded to, basically it's like when we've got the ball, it's a bit more of a problem than sometimes when we don't. Like, you want the ball obviously to score, but like that's where the problems are generated in Port Adelaide at the moment is. And look, that's great that's where we've got to, because last year it was, without the ball was often a problem for us. So the fact we've flipped so much this year is like, there is some stuff to love about that. But there's a lot to work on, and that's just part of the journey. And particularly with how many injuries there are, it's just, you're going to have dysfunction at times between lines and different players that are doing different things. So anything else on the lines there? Are you happy to, I do want to touch on the Dougie Cochran debut at Alberton Oval on Sunday before, because I think there's kind of a transition there that there's been a lot of talk about Port Adelaide losing quite heavily to Norwood and what that means for the kind of Port Adelaide program as a whole. And I think not enough people are making much ado about the injuries, because the injury crisis means that the Port Adelaide Sandful team is being gutted to make sure the AFL team is playing well, and that's the end of the day. That's what the Sandful team now is in the modern iteration of these leagues, is that it is a reserves team. But the Sandful team unfortunately did have a disappointing result. I think it was the biggest loss to Norwood at Alberton in over 100 years, which is not something we want to deal with. But it is also before I get to Dougie, actually, I did message you about this on the day. There was some spicy banter. I was standing in a similar spot that you and I usually stand at, which is right between the Quinn and Foss Williams stands there, kind of as you enter. And there was a little bit of banter going on in front of me, and I think Norwood fan was getting a bit chirpy after they kicked, got them 6-7 goals up, which, they're well in their rights to do so. But God damn it. But a Port fan behind and just went, yep, up the sandful, kind of like a bit facetiously. And the guy turned around and goes, "Oh yeah, we're doing better. We've got more premierships than you do, and we're winning more premierships than you are these days." And the Port fan just goes, "Oh yeah, well we're in the AFL, so we kind of won. That's where you want to be."
That's the point.
And he kind of said, "You guys wanted to get there too, but you're still here, and that's where you're going to stay." And the guy goes, "Yeah, and we're winning premierships. You guys aren't doing that." And the Port fan goes again goes, "Yeah, we're in the AFL." And Norwood fan goes, "Oh yeah, well I'm enjoying my premierships." And the Port fan goes, "Oh well, good for you. You might win another one this year. You get a trip to the Brickworks. How good!"
Yes.
And then I think the Norwood fan eventually, after back and forth, they started getting into each other a little bit, and the Norwood fan just delved into going, "You're a fucking wanker, aren't you?" And the Port fan went, "Yeah, I'm in the AFL." Like he just kept on going, "Yeah." I think he said, "Like, God, I'm a wanker in the AFL." Is essentially what he ended, and they kind of had to. I think the 3/4 siren went at that point, and they kind of did probably wisely go their separate ways at that point. But I was kind of just listening in at that point, going, "Jesus, this is good." Like you get a trip to the real glee in the Port fan's voice as he went, "Oh, you get a trip to Brickworks again, will you?" Like kind of just like, "Oh, good for you, buddy." So very, very fun banter, but ultimately, yeah, Norwood fans were well worth their cheers on the day because they did get a good win. But we saw Dougie make his debut, and it was inauspicious as it was, but and it is just a reflection of where the AFL side is and the SANFL side is, because the AFL side is taking so much of what the SANFL side can do to make sure our AFL side is competitive. The SANFL side wasn't able to be competitive on the day. It meant that we weren't able to get too much of the ball. So for those that weren't there, Dougie started at full forward and spent he spent probably a third of each quarter off the field as well. It was definitely a managed kind of debut. So his time on ground, I haven't actually seen those numbers, but he did spend maybe a third of every quarter on the bench at least. He kind of started the quarter, spent 10 minutes or so out there, then ran off and maybe came back on for the last few minutes. Again, that breakdown, that's just from me watching, standing there and watching the kind of on and off. So most of the first half down at full forward, it didn't get down there much at all. It wasn't much that he could do. He was getting involved in some contest. I think the one goal we get in the first half, it's a Finn Wakeland, a nice goal. Collects it off the ground, a crumb goal, but it comes from, I think, Dougie Cochran might have been involved in the contest, if I remember correctly. But it wasn't an official stat or anything like that. Second half, he starts at centre-half back, so they move him down the other end of the field. And he does, getting behind the ball and down the end of the field that it is going. He collects his 6 disposals. He did just look a little bit of just like trying to figure out where he's meant to be at any given time. And I think not that he didn't understand where it's just like the game was just so much. Trying to stop what Norwood was doing, you couldn't actually play your game. So he gets the 6 disposals. I will say the most fun I had was watching him warm up. Him and Tom Cochran were warming up in the same 4 or 5 warm-up group together, which was kind of fun to watch them kind of warm up together. I think that was probably a good moment for them. And just some of the just a silky smooth kind of movement. And the way Dougie Cochran covers ground and moves is really, really fun to watch. Some of his handballing and kicking in the warm-up was really, really pleasing to watch. So that was the first time I've gotten to view him in person in that way. And I was kind of pleased with what I saw there. The game vision, again, most people are going to look and go, there was a few, facetious Crows fans on Twitter going, "Oh, this is where your hopes are pinned." It's like, well, yeah, like we're not trying to put the pressure on him. And he got through the game unscathed, got a run in the SANFL, got his Port debut out. Like there's probably some nerves going into the game for him as well. First off, worrying about injury. And then second of all, he's playing for his boyhood club for the first time, even if it is at SANFL level. But, the limited things I saw, he had a great smother out in the wing at one point, did some good things. It's just it was limited opportunity. And that was kind of the game. There wasn't a lot of guys getting high disposal numbers, like Ware had 16, 17. Jez McLennan had a good game, but there wasn't a lot of guys gaining high disposal in the game that Norwood were kicking the absolute shit out of us. And essentially it looked like a training run for Norwood. So you can't gain too much out of that, apart from the fact that Dougie got back on the field and got through the game unscathed, and that's going to be better for his, obviously, going forward into being drafted by us. And, we want to see him if he gets some game time at the back end of this year. I wouldn't be reading into numbers too much, in particular in a game against a side like Norwood that's going to kick the shit out of us. He'll get his opportunity when the game's going better for us. And obviously he's also a kid playing in a man's league. Like, it's the other thing that's unspoken of when young Port Adelaide sides in the Sandful that are gutted by injury from the AFL side, you can just see the size difference. Like, you got guys running, like even Finn Wakeland looks small. Like, Wakeland took like a Mark of the Year contender, by the way, too. He's a fun one to watch. But by and large, you see a men against the boys kind of lineup because teams like Norwood and Glenelg that are competing at the top of the Sandful are building their sides to win the Sandful. Our side is obviously wanting to compete and win if they can, and there is probably some things we need to change in that structure because the Crows are doing better in that front. They're not doing great, but they are competing for finals, whereas we, whether injury or otherwise, we still haven't been quite the competitive side for the last half a decade or even decade. So there is some things we do need to probably change there about what we're doing. I don't know what those are. I don't watch enough Sandful. I'd like to watch more. I just don't get the time to. But by and large, it was men against boys out there, and Dougie Cochran was one of the young boys out there. And I encourage all Port fans to not worry about the stat line too much. He looks nice and silky when he's moving, and there's certainly a lot better football to come in his future when he's playing in a side that can utilise those talents a bit better. And obviously, once he grows into being a man as a footballer as well, he'll be able to find his footy as well.
Yeah, this is a kid that's just returned from a long-term injury. So, and then, was parked forward where the ball was not going very often. So, I mean, I didn't expect a lot. Conspiracy theory is we're also, trying to hide him still a little bit from performing too well before the draft. I can't remember where.
Richmond don't have the number one pick anymore, so if we're going to get that trade package across, then we need him to drop to 2 now or whatever,
Yeah, that's right, yeah. But I remember I was reading or listening to a discussion across the footy space, and someone just made the point of saying, he might have had a quiet game in his Port Adelaide debut, but he kicked 4 goals in his SANFL debut for Central District. So, and I don't think he played full game time there either. It might have been Kautumi actually. But regardless, that's the point they made, and it's a salient point too. So he'll be better for the run, and hopefully the team as a whole can compete a bit better next time around. But exciting for the football club for sure.
Yeah, I think we've got West Adelaide this weekend, which, they're a little, maybe not as good as Norwood this year, so but still obviously above us on the ladder as every other team is in the Sandful at the moment. So
we just need one more win, and Central's not to win.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I keep looking at that thinking a draw and percentage I think would help us as well. But I think, win would be better. Maybe this weekend, it'd be interesting to see how Dougie goes. I think it's an away match against West Adelaide. So we'll see how that goes. But I think one more point I wanted to touch on before we will obviously do more AFL. I think we've touched on this a couple of times the last couple of weeks. The AFLW stuff will start becoming more a part of the podcast, certainly next week as we lead into the first week of AFLW. But it is, again, this podcast, we have full-time jobs and full-time lives outside of it. So the crossover period where it is AFLW and AFL men's playing for a couple of weeks together means that we do kind of condense the episodes to try to be able to give both teams their justice while not encroaching anymore on our time as well. We put a fair bit of time into it as it is, so but we will do our best there. But I just wanted to touch on and just mention that AFLW match between Australia and Ireland was obviously the second half. Australia dominated and ended up getting the win that they deserved, but really, really good footy. I watched the first half before I wandered across. I was watching the first half at the district before I wandered across for our match, obviously, so I didn't catch the full game live, but what I saw was great footy. Matilda Scholz didn't have, she was obviously splitting time with Mim Strom, who's like quite a veteran of the league as well. So, but what Matilda did was when they, Ireland are trying to go down the line, it's the amount of contest she created. She obviously doesn't get stats for those as far as disposals and stuff, but she was creating some incredible contest, and had obviously one of the highlights of a tap to Mon Conti kicking a goal as well, and really, really proud to see her represent us out there. There's some good AFLW content out of some of the pre-game stuff, and I think one of the interviews they were asking her some questions. I can't remember what the context was, but she just spoke about how much she loves Adelaide and was giving Adelaide a good rap, which is good stuff to see in national AFLW content, how much she loves Adelaide. So just keep reminding your sister of that, and she can come back when the time's right. It was real. I just wanted to say I'm very, very proud as a Port Adelaide fan to see her represent us at that level. And obviously, I actually think the football is really, really good, and is obviously a great example as to if you keep investing in this sport, the product will continue to improve as it has been. But the AFL could do a lot better. There's obviously been a lot of controversy around where that game ended up. It did look good on TV with the golden hour glow coming over the North Sydney kind of beaches or whatever that area was. It looked really good aesthetically, but whether the SCG would have been better for it is a discussion for another time. But really, really proud of Matilda, and a great spectacle and some really, really good footy on show between the two sides.
Yeah, I only managed to see the first half as well, which my family then indulged in a family movie of Space Jam, which, is a classic, so can't say no to that. I thought from what I did see, though, that Matilda was, Mim Strom is obviously quite a formidable ruck in her own right, but thought Matilda was criminally underused, but she didn't get injured, so I wouldn't know what to do with myself if Matilda Scholz got injured. So happy with that. Happy for her that she got that opportunity. Should have been at the SCG, just to quickly mention that. And I don't think enough was made over the first, as I said to you, List A Australian rules international football game. We obviously they tried to muddle in or merge in discussions of international rules games that had been played and stuff like that. But this, unless I'm incorrect, and I'm not talking about like those kind of real amateur, not national or like international championship games.
Like an Australian side plays the US side, like that. There's the US.
Or like
side.
I think New Zealand, won one of those international kind of meets. I'm talking about like this is Australia's best players from like this is obviously in the women's context versus Ireland's best Australian rules footballers. This is the first international game of Australian rules football where the players come from a professional league. And I don't think that aspect of it was noted or as celebrated as much as it was. Obviously, within the AFLW community, it was fairly well celebrated and appreciated. But I thought it was a momentous occasion. Whether it be women or men, going back 20, 25 years ago, an international match of Australian rules football probably seemed like a bit of a pipe dream. And it came to fruition on Saturday, which personally I thought was pretty cool. That's my little 2 cents there. The score blew out at the end, but if this becomes a regular fixture, which I know they're wanting to make it, potentially even going over to Ireland. For me, I think you should go to the SCG before you go to Ireland, but again, discussions for another day, perhaps. It was just a cool little milestone in the journey of both women's professional football, but Australian rules football as a whole, I think.
I absolutely agree, and it's a very good point you bring up about it being. I think I'd kind of had that thought, but when you brought it up, it like really hit home. Just like it is pretty special to see an international match of that stature take place, where it is just purely our sport rather than the hybrid that the men's play when they do the Ireland International Series. It is actually Australian rules football on the international stage as it's meant to be played as Australian rules football. And there's some good highlight. Australia kicks out to a quick start, Ireland kicks back, and it's a bit back and forth. Then Australia kind of makes the break at halftime and continues that from there on. But there was some really, Australia obviously has the talent, a more depth of talent, and that showed in the end. But it was really, really good to see Ireland have their moments in the game as well, because probably would have been, I don't know how it would have been received if Australia had just, won by 100 points or something like that. But there was certainly enough to show. And, Ireland's obviously, their talent base is only going to increase as the AFLW continues to grow, and the feed from Ireland continues to be there as well, because there's certainly, obviously, we know in the men's competition that you have a fair bit of talent coming over from Ireland as well. And the women, certainly, there's some really, really good talent coming. So, and we're looking forward to, obviously, AFLW season starting, and Jamie and I have been talking about a bit off air and in text messages how much we're buzzing for it. Probably, it'll be a nice kind of refresher for the back end of what has been, as much as it's been interesting men's season, it's been a slog at times with ethical loss and ethical tank and honourable loss or whatever it is week after week. So we're looking forward to talking about AFLW a bit more as the weeks go on very, very soon as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Time to get into the segments, of course. As we always remind you, if you're listening or watching, then we appreciate it, and you're probably on board and following on the socials and all that. But if you happen to not be, you're sitting there thinking as I'm talking, you're going, I don't know if I do follow them on Instagram, then look us up, The Creed, on Instagram. It's the same logo on Instagram. It's __ The Creed if you want to search the exact handle. But follow us on Instagram, whether it be Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. Search for The Creed, look for the logo with the old tri-bolt in the background, and you'll find us there. Find the content, see what we're tweeting on game day or sharing different things on those platforms. And, of course, subscribe and like on YouTube. Like each of the videos as you're watching. That does help feed the algorithm. Everything we know in the modern world in these spaces is algorithm-based. And certainly for a podcast like ours that doesn't have any paid advertising or anything like that, it's something I would like to do in the future to keep pushing it out even more. But at the moment, it is all organically grown. And so every like, subscribe, sharing on Spotify, reviews, all that stuff helps feed the algorithm and make the algorithms go, oh, yes, we should feed that to more people. So keep doing that. But we appreciate all of you that do that week to week and interact with us on the socials as well. It's always it's pleasing to watch kind of the growth that it's all had this year. So, thank you. Let's get into the segments. And, of course, we always start with the Wilson Grey. Alrighty, Wilson Grey this week. Of course, the Wilson Grey for standout moments on the field, whether they be moments of highlight marks or gritty tackles, whatever it be, moments outside of goals that we love. Before we go to this week's nominations, last week's winner was Jamie's nomination of Josh Lai tackling and putting the pressure on in the goal square to deny a certain goal, what it felt like to Charlie Cameron. Lai denying Country Roads, winning with 90% of the votes. So a very, very one-sided vote to my nomination of Jason Horne-Francis intercept mark plus his pass in his kind of assist there. So everyone loves Josh Lai, and that moment was very, very dominant in the vote.
The best Josh in the world.
He is the best Josh in the world. It's funny, side note, being at the game with my brother, who is a Crows fan, the reason he was there was he just loves footy. I've said this before, but he was actually involved in the Multicultural Cup stuff. He was out, did the lap of honour of the field with his school, which was really cool. He was at Alberton all day on Friday as well, so he was very heavily involved in it. He's involved every year at the school he works at, that he's been there for 10, 11 years now. He said Alberton was wonderful on Friday, and he said that he did have a lot. He really loves the program and has a lot of praise for it. So it was really, really good to see him involved in that. But it was funny. I think there was a moment in the first quarter. I think it might have been even Jitterverse's first goal. It was one of their earlier goals where they just placed the ball out perfectly in front of whoever Josh Lai was. I can't remember who it was, but it could have been Keneally. I don't know. Whoever Josh Lai was playing on at that moment, just placed it perfectly in front for a chest mark, and Josh Lai could do nothing about it. My brother is the Crows fan who'd gone through the torment of the showdown and just goes, "That's how you fucking kick when you're playing Josh Lai." Just you can see that he's still got the PTSD of the showdown in his head. And
don't kick it in the air.
I just kind of chuckled and said, "Oh, you're still thinking about that one, are you?" He's just like, "Yeah, you guys, we just fed Josh Lai all day." And I did say something along the lines of, "Yeah, best Josh in the world."
Oh, so, how good!
It just is frustration. I understand it as a PTSD survivor of many Port moments myself. So it was just fun to enjoy being on the other side of one of those ones. My nomination, though, this week for the Wilson Grey, me getting to go first this week, can't go past. I mentioned, kind of alluded to it before, but Mitch Zadow running the length of the field in the fourth quarter to spoil at the line what looked like it was going to be a goal scoring opportunity for GWS. Just the fact that a small pressure forward is running the length of the field in the fourth quarter to spoil one over the line and then celebrate like he scored a goal, that says anything. Like we were talking about the cut of his jib earlier, like that's the shit that I love. Him celebrating a moment like that, and the fact that he's got the run in his legs to do that in the fourth quarter of a game that's been pretty cold, pretty pressured, and all that stuff. It's again good signs from Mitch Zadow, and that's my nomination for this week.
Now Stringer in the pocket, ignored Delana, went instead. Great vision, Fonte there, but getting back. Zadow helping out.
How's the run? That is why Port Adelaide is so good defensively. Zadow is a small forward defending at the top of the goal square. That is a huge work rate.
Great nom, hard act to follow, but a thoroughly enjoyable moment. Such a fun-looking fellow. Shout out to Joe Berry, chase down tackle on Grzyzewski late in the first quarter. Whitlock with a bit of a one-hand tap down to himself and then scoop while his other hand is just being ripped out of its socket by, I think, Himmelberg. But I'm going to nominate a bit of a quirky one. 18 minutes on the clock in the fourth quarter. We're making a run up the western wing. A bit of congestion. Willem Drew taps the ball to a running Joe Berry who puts the Jets on, who I think then kicks it, but then kicks it into the back of someone maybe, but then it rebounds and he picks it up again for an inside 50, I think. But the tap by Willem Drew, just in congestion, to get it to Joe Berry running past him, I thought was a pretty cool moment.
Up the line. Verdi missed with a big spoil away. Spills to Bergman. Clever by Drew. Into the path of Berry. Verdi was still there. Berry goes again. Now they play with a bit more flair.
See, when there's a bit of flair or handball, it actually brings some excitement in the game forward of the ball. Forwards get on the move.
We're talking about that with a handball before, but even the crafty tap-ons now, they're just aware of the congestion and they know who's around them and they know where the space is and where they're going to get it.
And Willem Drew actually did those tap-ons a few times in this game as well. Perhaps that's what helped with his champion data score. I don't know, but I noticed it. I see you, Willem.
That's good, Dom. I actually, as you were talking about that, I was just like, Willem has done that across his career, particularly in the last few years. I've noticed he's very good at reading, and it's one of those like unnoticed, underrated parts of Willem's game is some of those little kind of finesse things that he does, because you don't think of him that way sometimes, but he does have that in his locker. So it's a nice one to nominate for him. And you've said this line a lot. Whatever the 11 secret herbs and spices are of champion data ratings, we don't know, but who knows if that's in there. I genuinely, as much as I love sharing them when our players are at the top of them, sometimes I am genuinely surprised at who's there. And I, as much as I love Willem, I was surprised to see he was our highest rated player. But again, I like that there's certain metrics that he's being rewarded for in that. But
me too.
He's generally been one of our high rated players this year. So yeah, there must be something that he's doing in those herbs and spices
he actually has.
Enjoying, so.
Yeah.
No, good noms. It'll be
You're my boy, Drew.
Yeah, again, chef. And Drew is 150th game, of course. It'd be
of course,
would have been lovely, lovely to get the win for him. But I'm sure we did talk about it plenty on the preview, and nice of him to get a nom in his 150th game. So let's move on to goal of the week. Alrighty, goal of the week. And Jamie gets to go first this week, but first of all, the winner last week in a similarly one-sided nomination that it was, but Jason Horne-Francis. It must have been just people who just don't like Charlie Cameron, because it is Jason Horne-Francis' goal that stopped the Country Road sing-along in the game last week against Brisbane, won with 91% of the vote over your nomination of Vicentini, finishing off a sublime bit of transition. So Two very, very one-sided votes last week. The goals one was one that I think we both said, maybe that's going to be, you were already throwing out the offers of beers. So there's a couple of people there that nominated. But I was kind of surprised I was kind of surprised by the Wilson Gray nomination being as one-sided it was. But, some weeks it happens. But you get to go first this week on Goal of the Week, Jamie. So what have we got for us?
Yeah, just to touch on last week's game, rare Goal of the Week where we both nominated it. For those who were listening to the review show.
Forgot about that. That was fun.
Good times. And my distraction for those that were listening to that episode, and thank you again, we love you all. The thing that distracted me got its due criticism too. So
yeah,
one for the good guys. Anyway, I think I know which one Dave wants to nominate. So in that regard, I'm going to leave it open because I want to actually nominate Xavier Bammett's goal, which actually comes off of a Mitch Georgiades set shot that falls short. A bit of a Jordan Sweet taking the ball or trying to make something of the ball, spills out. Xavier Bammett kicks kind of over his head.
Get rid of the lactic acid from the last couple of runs.
It's been working hard. How does it affect the execution on the set shot? The power need a goal. It's going across the face. Big pack right in the square. It's dragged down. They still scrap for it. Bammett! He bangs it through.
Just to back over your point, Roo, so you said Fremantle and Brisbane just blew them away halfway through the third quarter.
And then a little bit of scuffling afterwards for good measure. But yeah, just an entertaining moment. We had our fair share of set shot goals, which don't do well for the short list. But yeah, there is one other goal that is obviously quite noteworthy for the circumstances. But wanted to nominate Xavier Bammett's goal for the all-encompassing nature that it was.
Yeah, I had Bammett's goal at the top of my shortlist as well. I thought it was...
Whoa! Yeah. Okay.
I did. Look, we've grown to love Bam Bam quite quickly on this podcast, and again, that's that quickness of thought and quickness of mind that we were talking about with him and Zato earlier. That is kind of what
reward for effort too.
Yeah, exactly. And just kicking a goal like that is a lot more difficult. Like once it's gone through, you go, okay, you just need to get it on the end. But there's a lot of it's very, very congested down there in those moments, and as we saw in the fracas afterwards that you touched on there. My nomination is probably the only other kind of exciting open play kind of goal that we really got on the day. In that being the last goal of the game, the only goal of the fourth quarter.
Trying to take it on a bit more. Burgoyne, Fontier spoil, spills Georgiades. No one in the square, needs the bounce. Mitch Georgiades. The power right in this.
Let's have a look. It's a big punch. Look at Georgiades. 45 metres out. Got a good bounce. 3 goals for Mitch.
Mitch Georgiades snapping from almost 50 metres out and getting a bit of a fortuitous bounce. It bounced in the goal square, but still kind of one of those ones that could have gone either way. But we would have liked Durden to. I think Durden would have been a goal of the week nominee had it finished off. And I think Zato as well with his nice little smooth scoop, and then he just blazed it out in the full. There was a couple of almost goal of the weeks, but
the ball bobbled in the air. Which was unfortunate. As it dropped out of his hand, it just skewed, which obviously caused the out of bounds kick.
Yeah,
unfortunately, because that was a nice pickup.
It was beautiful. Similar to Durden's pickup earlier on, with that he actually was able to make a goal assist for Georgiades in the square. Durden had that really nice pickup off the Connor.
I did want to shout that one out because that was a bit of a momentous occasion with Iden slipping over.
Yeah,
and we can and part of me is like, we can count that as a goal. His goal streak is it doesn't
score involved. I mean, if you're talking in hockey terms, then it's points. You get a point for either a goal or an assist in your points total. So we could call it that. Yeah.
Playing for points.
Yeah, but yeah, obviously the Mitch goal to bring it back to the point at hand in the fourth quarter is my nomination. A very, very nice finish for Mitch to finish off his third of the day, and and overall a nice performance from Mitch in what was a tough battle for him. So a couple of probably the two best goals of the day. I think we've got clearly in there. Shout out to Todd Marshall's finishes from particularly his second one, which was I think he kicked right from on the 50 arc, more or less directly in front, but still those ones are a long kick to finish comfortably because he comfortably flushed it. I think they were very, very good set shots. And I think if Mitch hadn't kicked that goal in the fourth quarter, I might have been nominating that second Todd Marshall set shot. So, but probably aesthetically, I think we picked the two of the bunch.
Yeah. Sorry. And again, just to extend on that, well, not again, I haven't mentioned it, but yeah, again to cut in, sorry. Just objectively think Mark Ricciuto's commentary was pretty good and pretty decent, pretty balanced. But fuck him for saying that Todd Marshall had only kicked 4 goals in 15 games this year, while we all know that Todd was playing as a defender for most of those games. Like, I thought that was a bit rich. But yeah, just a nag, you know. Moving on.
Yeah. I'm always okay with a Mark Ricciuto nag. So yeah, we can. I'll let that one play. Alrighty, let's get through our Player of the Year voting. Alrighty, Player of the Year votes. Of course, if you haven't listened, welcome. If this is the first podcast you're listening to, we appreciate you being here. Player of the Year votes. Jamie and I each go 5 through 1. 5 being our best on field. One vote going to our 5th best on field. We take it in turns each week. We don't know who each other are voting for, so I get to go first this week. So I'll leave my honourable mentions for after because I actually do have a few. I found it quite tough to get through. And I apologise if you're looking and seeing me glancing off screen. I am, of course, being remotely recording. I don't have my second screen set up with my votes and different stats on the second screen. So I'm got my phone in my hand to read the notes app off my phone where I've got my corresponding notes. So my one vote, I've actually gone with Mitch Georgiades. I thought about getting him up higher. I actually think him being able to finish his 3 goals was important in a tight match, and obviously we would have liked him to kick 1 or 2 more. But I think some of his work upfield, the constant danger he was providing for GWS, he was accountable all day. I actually had a note. There was a funny moment of commentary at some point in the game in which I think it was Ben Dixon said, Georgiades is on his bike again. Sam Taylor's got lactic in his eyeballs. I can see it from here. Like, it's just talking about how hard Georgiades was essentially making Sam Taylor work. So that kind of speaks to the effort that Georgiades was putting in on the field. He's getting upfield, making some connective play, and then he got his goals as well. I think Ricciuto asked Ben Dixon how much he got out, how many times he got outside of forward 50, and Dicko's response was, "My ankle bracelet went off when I left the forward 50."
He did.
So it was good, some good stuff there. But Georgiades with the 3 goals. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling back down in my notes app again. I much prefer the second screen setup I have than the usual studio. But yeah, the 14 disposals. Obviously took I think 4 marks inside 50, 7 score involvements. Just a quintessential kind of Georgiades game. Had the tackles, getting some pressure on, doing a lot of Georgiades things. So appreciate his game. Again, he needs to work on that finishing, but I think this is kind of considering the opportunities against a defender that's often worked him. Sam Taylor plays Georgiades quite well. I think Sam Taylor started quite well, kept him quiet for a while, but Georgiades found his way to goal, whether it was directly against Sam Taylor or whatever. You've got to find a way in those matchups, and part of that is by moving around the field, and Georgiades is very good at that. So Joe Berry, he got a mention earlier, and he's going to get a mention again here in my 2 spot. I think the wing move was very, very nice. He gets himself on the ball a lot more, had some real nice moments where you can just see that he's got the football intelligence, which I was talking about before with a few of the guys, but Joe Berry really sees the field quite well. I think it's just like he sees the field. He's still sometimes muddling in his decision-making, but I think his decision-making mostly on the day, sometimes his execution. He tried a right footer again, went out in the full, but he's starting to pick up on that right foot a little bit more. But yeah, 24 disposals. Yeah, exactly. 10 of those contested as well. 62% disposal efficiency, so reasonable for a scrappy game for a young player. I think actually like to get 24 disposals and got 62%. There's, obviously HORNE-FRANCIS went at worse disposal efficiency, so reasonable areas without being spectacular. Maybe if the disposal efficiency had been higher, I might have snuck him up a bit higher. But overall, I'd still appreciate his efforts on the day, and I'm really, really excited for the future of Joe Berry. In my 3 spot, a player that I think should be in All-Australian contention, but as I mentioned earlier, I think he's maybe just slipping out of it without any fault of his own. I just think it's just the way the storylines are written about the AFL season. But Aliir is in my 3 spot. He had 21 disposals, 7 marks, the 7 intercept possessions as well, 7 1%ers. He went at 90% disposal efficiency with his 21 disposals, 5 rebound 50s, and he kind of looked like he'd taken a few knocks in the game. Even before the commentators pointed it out on TV, I think it was early in the second half, they said he looks a bit sore, and he was kind of just gingerly walking. But I think I'd noticed at one point in the first half, I looked at my brother and said, Aliir looks a bit sore, but he, again, plays out the game at 100% time on ground regardless. So the fact he battles through that well, is still the general down there and does what he does. Is really, really special to me. So I love watching Aliir play. I'm going to be devastated whenever his time at Port Adelaide comes to an end, because he's an all-time great at this point, and for his play on field alone is bordering on that. But what he means to the club and what he means to us as supporters, and just the way he goes about it, is really, really special. Considering the kind of years we've been having, he just still running around with a smile on his face and leading this inexperienced defence through, which is really, really, again, special to me as a fan. My 4 votes I've given to Jace Burgoyne. I think lower disposal numbers, but I'm noticing him everywhere. And when I looked at his numbers, I see 17 disposals, 11 contested. Despite that being a heavy contested possession rate there, 88% disposal efficiency. You touched on it before. He's gotten back, kind of jumped that number up again. He's up and down a little bit in that area, but that's when he gets there, he's quite special there. He has the 11 tackles and some very, really nice tackling technique on display again for me and my particular proclivities when it comes to Jace Burgoyne tackles. He has the 7 clearances, 6 of those, mostly from stoppage, but he has the 1 centre clearance as well. 300 metres gained, the 4 scoring involvements. He's at numbers, or if he'd gone a little bit better, he might have even been in contention for the 5 spot. But the 5 spot was really no argument there. Jason Horne-Francis, best on field for me, and obviously best on field for the coaches as far as the Port Adelaide players go as well. He's up into the top 5 of the coaches' votes, gets the 7 coaches' votes between the 2 coaches this week. He has a 29 disposals, 12% contested. He does only go at 48% disposal efficiency, but as you said, his impact on the game, the way he busts through, makes GWS accountable. I can't even imagine what this game would have been like if you just take Jason Horne-Francis out of our side and we're maybe throwing in Will Brodie has to play or something like that. This game is not nearly as close. The impact that he has, the aura that he plays with, makes teams accountable and is genuinely the reason that we've kind of been somewhat competitive over the last couple of weeks, particularly since Zach Butters has gone out of the side. 29 disposals, 12 contested, 7 marks. He had the 7 clearances himself with a very even mix of it. He had 3 from the centre, 4 from stoppage, 400 odd metres gained, 4 score involvements, 1%er in there as well. I'm sure you've got a few more of the other stats there. Again, reading off my phone, realising I'm in my late 30s. Everything looks very, very small, but that's my votes. Like I said, I had a tough time with a few that have missed out on the votes there. I found it a really, really interesting week. As you said, Willem Drew, top of the pops for the champion data. It doesn't get into my votes. I'm interested to see where you go with yours. If we Yahtzee this week, I will eat my hat. So please don't tell me with Yahtzee, because I don't want to eat my hat.
Get the knife and fork ready. Nah, just kidding. Just kidding. Just kidding. No Yahtzee today, although very similar players. But being second, I'm going to go ahead and give an honourable mention to Josh Lai, who we've spoken about. The best Josh in the world. Led us for intercept possessions, from what I remember. Just becoming more prevalent in the contest as well, which we touched on in last week's review. as well. Mitch Zato, fantastic game. I think impactful while minimal from a disposal point of view. Still made his presence felt on the field, which we've discussed. Bergman, although we discussed his perhaps deficiencies in terms of inside 50, he still had a really good game, and his tackle numbers were up there as well. His possession numbers. So he played a good game. Oh, and Joe Barry. I didn't get to fit Joe Barry in my votes, but you've already done it, so I don't really need to give him an honourable mention. My one vote goes to George as well. Led us for score involvements. He had the 5 scoring shots, but also had 3 other score involvements as well from, if I remember correct, Leck. My 2 votes goes to Jordan Sweet. I think it's still... well, just to do the flip side of Mark Rashudo's commentary, as he put it, I think Jordan Sweet is still underrated in the competition. It's another week where he over doubles the hitouts of his 2 opponents and more than doubles the hitouts to advantage of his 2 opponents. Dante Visentini also contributing well in his regard, but obviously not getting a vote. But yeah, Jordan Sweet carrying the load in terms of the ruck duties is just one of the surprising highlights of season 2026. I think we had hopes that he would continue in the vein of form that he finished last year with, while also understanding that he started 2025 well. He had a big dip for whatever reason, and then he came back strong at the end, and it was basically segmented into thirds last year. But this year, obviously, famously, wasn't picked for round 1, and from round 2 onwards hasn't really looked back to become one of the higher performing ruckmen in the competition. 35 hitouts, 11 hitouts to advantage. 9 disposals that did go at around 45%, but he had his 2 shots on goal, which didn't net the major, unfortunately. 5 clearance, though, so he's still doing that. I think there was a ground ball, only 1 ground ball, but he has been better in that recently. 3 tackles, 2 1%ers from Jordan Sweet. My 3 votes goes to Jace Burgoyne for all the reasons that you said. 11 tackles and 24 pressure acts, which is just fantastic numbers. Lower on the disposal count. Good disposal efficiency, though. Like you mentioned, getting his clearances and his ground ball gets as well. So just becoming a well-rounded footballer. And as he reaches that 100-game milestone and traverses that and passes that and pushes on forward, I think we'll have a footballer that we look upon as fondly as we did his old man, the way that he's going. So that's where his career is set as far as I'm concerned. 4 votes for me goes to Double A, Alir. This is a bit of we probably should have given you more votes in recent weeks or across the year, so this is a bit of a catch up. But I just watched the game and kind of reveled in the fact that we'd be kind of fucked without Alir. He just does general that back line so fantastically well. And when you talk about generals of backlines, it's a hard thing to kind of quantify because it is a bit of vibes based, and it's probably only the supporters of your particular teams. If you have a general, different setups have different teams have different setups, different players, obviously. Darcy Moore, I'm sure, is a bit of a general for Collingwood when he's playing, of course, but he's also the captain, whereas Alir isn't the captain. He's a leader, but he just generals that back line so fantastically well. And this was a game where I thought he was involved in just about everything in the back line. And I do tend to agree that perhaps he won't get that All-Australian jacket, but I think that's mostly because our team's losing. I don't think it's got anything to do with how well he's performing. Ken Hinkley will keep flying the flag because Aliir's had a great season, and he's played I think all the games this season. So his best and fairest count will be very interesting. He may even, finish on the podium.
Mm-hmm.
So, 4 votes for Aliir. Maybe the game didn't, warrant 4 votes. But like I said, it's a bit of a catch-up for Aliir, because I think as well, when we look at our votes, I'm not sure Aliir will probably get the amount that he probably deserves as a total. So just a little bump for him there. You voted for him too. So
I mean, to your point about whether or not he deserves, it's like I had him in the 3 spot, and I was thinking like my spots besides Jason Horne-Francis were in flux. I think I texted you when you said what time you'd be online for us to do this. I said, it gives me more time to fuck around with my votes, because I was really struggling with the positioning of them. So I think Aliir was in different spots at different times. So to go back to you, I assume I know where you're going with your 5 votes, but Aliir was very, very deserving of being. I think he was top 3 on field for us. So you putting him in the 4 spot is absolutely warranted, I think.
Well, that's a good point. 21 disposals. I mean, 7 intercept possessions, 7 contested, 7 marks. Lucky 7s for Aliir. 3 score involvements too. That beautiful goal assist, well-weighted kick. I think, was that for Zato or was that for someone else? I can't remember now. But it was a perfectly weighted kick.
I can't know what you're talking about, but it's like trying to remember a dream. It's kind of just very fuzzy. Anyway, good.
7 1%ers, 3 contested defensive one-on-ones, and unfortunately lost 1, but he won 2. So AA for me. Good luck to him, though. JHF, is clearly best on ground for mine, and just goes off the back of our discussion about him taking the number 1 midfielder spot in his stride.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, I am absolutely buzzing for Jason Horne-Francis, the step he's taken this year. I think it should be remembered that he started the year objective. Well, coaches said that the first 4 or 5 weeks were essentially his preseason. So he really didn't start getting a bulk of midfield time until rounds 5 or 6, I still remember the start of the year when obviously we lost to the Kangaroos, and listening to Fireball on the Monday and David King's gleeful chuckling about where Jason Horne-Francis was, and I just would like if
he's in the forward line. He had foot surgery.
I would like Kane Corns to just make sure that David King is well aware that Jason Horne-Francis is in the top 5 of the coaches' votes now. So
that's the point I was going to make as well. How refreshing.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's a year that he's been not thrown around, because it is. I think he's very, very comfortable now moving, taking that forward time, getting in midfield. The transition for him seems a lot more seamless. Like he seems to bounce between both really, really well, and have much more of an understanding of the totality of his role in the team and the way that we can utilize those unique talents of his.
Fucking love it. He has strengths in 2 sections of the field, and he has the confidence, and now he has the experience to utilize those strengths to good effect. Wherever he's needed on the day.
Yeah, and channeling his emotions far, far, far better. Not
he's
that I was
take
against.
The piss.
Yeah, I wasn't against the argy-bargy at times, but he was having to learn to toe that line a little bit. Particularly, last year we saw that Kangaroos game, the West Coast one with the argy-bargy with Harley Reid, and you've just seen him like there's a switch has flicked this year as far as the way he emotionally channels in a game. He's still very emotional and bullish on field, but you just don't see him really get over the top emotional in any moment that isn't channeled into it's really impressive to see that kind of growth. I'm still all for him having a little bit of fracas if he feels the need, but it feels like he knows when to utilize that, and whatever coaching has gone into that, or if it's just simply growth as a human, both things could be true. And really, really pleased with how he's channeling everything this year.
Me too, and I feel that now in the years that are before us, laid before us for us to traverse, onward and forward. I feel that if we are to get a Jason Horne-Francis emotional outburst, it will come in conjunction with a taking the piss type of game, rather than previously it was a emotional, or like an overflowing of emotion, and you're giving away 6 free kicks. I think there was that Gold Coast game up on the Gold Coast a couple of years ago that happened, and perhaps your influence on the game is taking a back seat. But I just get that feeling that he's found that balance. He's got that ability, the confidence in his ability to impact all around the ground. If he does, if a team, if a moment, like if a person pushes him to take something personally, if you want, to a visceral effect, I feel that he's going to take the piss. Like he knows how to channel that now into absolutely ripping a game open instead of going the other way.
Yeah. And it has to be said that I think he's kicked 25 or 26 goals this year now. So whatever the season ends, he's going to end with an average of 20 plus disposals and at least a goal a game, which is absolute good areas. And with Durden kicking his 29 so far this year as well. The last few years we've kind of lamented the fact that we haven't really had, and we're still not having. Georgiades is down in his goal kicking this year, obviously, unless he kicks 20 in the next 2-3 weeks, which Georgiades does have the ability to do at some point in his time, but he will likely come unders from his goal scoring last year. But we've been, and again, Whitlock has kicked his 20 odd and whatever. But the fact that Durden and Jason Horne-Francis have popped up with their, 50 goals, over 50 goals between them has been a nice little plus point to that forward line. Yeah. So he's getting his goals. His set shot kicking has been reasonably good this year compared to the yips he had last year. So, Jason Horne-Francis, we love him, and hopefully we continue to love what he does this week as we close off the episode and just touch on the fact that we will preview it fully on Thursday evening and releasing Friday. But we take on Sydney in Sydney this week on Saturday afternoon, 3:45 p.m. Kickoff. I'm looking at my app and I'm actually being that I am going to Sydney for the game. So shout out if you're over there. I know we've talked to Simon, and I will message you back, Simon, as well. But looking forward to going to Sydney for the game. I haven't been to the SCG before, so looking forward to that. But obviously a tough matchup. Sydney have had their couple of injuries. They've obviously had, I'm blanking on his name right now, but the lad that had that tragic kind of broken leg. And then obviously James Rowbottom broke his hand as well. So they've had a couple of key injuries in the last couple of weeks, a little bit up and down. But ultimately we're still playing Sydney in Sydney, and whatever injuries any other team has got, we've probably got a worse injury crisis. And we've obviously had another one go out this week as well. So, how are you feeling about this one, Jamie, before we get to the full preview in a couple of days?
I am buoyed by how we performed against Sydney last time, caveated by the fact that it was A, at home, and B, we did have a stronger team to select. So I have no high hopes of this game ahead of us. Sorry to say, everyone, but I'm sure we're all on the same page. All we want to see is a fucking good effort. We want to see our players taking steps forward, like I say ad nauseum in times like this. That's all we can really ask for. Don't get blown out would be the other thing. Sydney are obviously playing for top 2, so they'll have some motivation behind them, and perhaps, looking at us like an easy kill. And it's whether they'll have the discipline like a Brisbane did to really put us to the sword, or whether they become a bit complacent with that in mind. That's up to them. Our focus is on us. Just play a good game. I dare say, look, we're choosing out of Jackson Mead, Will Brodie, or Jacob Ware to replace Jack Watkins. Take your pick. They'll be a role player. They'll play 40% time on ground, probably. But what I do want to see is, because Bergman will probably, this is probably getting a bit previewy. Look, We'll save this for Thursday.
Yeah.
Will Brody in for Jack Watkins, because let's give you another game.
Yeah. I would say Jackson Mead, but I also am intrigued by if and when Will Brody gets another shot, considering the high profile trade for the 103rd pick or whatever it was.
And a box of pizza.
Yeah. The draft pick that was passed on, by the way. What a league we have sometimes. It's very interesting. But yes, thank you for listening, everyone. I know it's getting to the back end of the season with the men's, and it is a lot of imperfect football that we're reviewing, but I enjoyed that review as well. I did enjoy kind of diving into kind of those bits and pieces and those lines of what was a scrappy game, but there is always learnings to come from these kind of ones. And as we get close to bowing out of the men's season this year, it is still enjoyable to do these reviews. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Can the fucking pair.
As our Spanish friends say, can la pera.